There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello Booktube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am outside on my parents' deck in Saskatoon, and it's a little cold, and it looks like it. I don't think it's gonna rain anytime soon, but it's certainly gray, which is good because I have an easier time finding an alfresco location pretty much anywhere that I can sit down outside while work on a cloudy day. This is pretty elementary, Sean. You don't need to explain this, but I was a bit taken aback about how bright the little parquet near their house was every single place. This part of the city is quite newly developed, so the trees are not tall, and there was no trees casting shade that would work for me near a bench. I don't think I mentioned that my new apartment, which is a 20-minute walk from here, is next to a humongous golf course. In fact, I can, apparently Mom says, I don't know if I would be breaking any rules to do this, but that I can walk through the golf course to get here, and it's only about maybe a 16-minute walk instead of a 20-minute walk or something. So I'm assuming that that means there's going to be a lot of green space with benches available to me, but I have not explored that at all, and probably won't do so until after I get in. But it's a little chilly. This is my new blouse. I don't know how the color's going to show up on such a gray, overcast day, but it's a pale green. Quite like it. What do you think? I can see I look a little sleepy because I just, as per usual for a Friday Reads, I have just gotten up. I have discovered that the only canned coffee, cold canned coffee available for sale anywhere I've been this week is Starbucks, like Frappuccino or something. It's like $3. There's no other canned coffee, like iced coffee, available. Maybe it's just not far enough into summer and there'll be more brands available, but that's comparing rather poorly to all the different kinds of coffee I could get for my alfresco Friday Reads. But anyway, because I'm here on the balcony, I'm having hot coffee of Mom's. I have been alone all week. It's been kind of like a risky business type of situation without the sexy dancing in the underwear. And Mom and Dad are coming back in by lunchtime. It's about 8 a.m. so I gotta do a massive cleaning to bury the evidence of all my cooking disasters and whatnot. I have had a good week. I've had a great week. Reading wise and otherwise, actually. Let's start with the otherwise. I don't have any major news, but my mom loves to shop, and she is a great person to have as your ally when you are shopping. In fact, she's more than an ally. She's also the purse holder, or has been so far since I last saw you. So I got a whole bunch of furniture, chairs, a dining room table, a funky table that'll serve as my desk for the time being, and a bunch of pots and pans from Value Village, and this and that and this and that. So it's been fun. Starting to really miss Kenji, which I guess is a good sign. I hope he really misses me too. And we haven't been able to connect the last couple days. The time difference is terrible for connecting, and yeah, there's other complicating factors on his end. So yeah, I haven't talked to him. Haven't seen his face for a few days. McNally Robinson is the independent bookstore. It is a bit of a chain. Like, it's started, I think, in Winnipeg, and there's a big one here in Saskatoon, and I'm not sure if there's another one. Maybe Calgary. But McNally is also McNally something something in New York City, and it's all affiliated. But does that still count as an independent bookstore? I don't really know what an independent bookstore is, except that it's not Amazon. Can someone help me with the definition? But I think McNally's, I hope McNally's is considered an independent bookstore, because otherwise that's the only bookseller in Saskatoon that sells new books other than Indigo, and it is, I would think, it's a massive chain. It's Canada's Barnes & Noble, basically. It used to be Chapters, and then there was a merger, and now it's Indigo, and it's not a friendly place to shop. The staff, I guess they're friendly, but I think some of you might remember a vlog that I made many years ago on a return visit home at Christmas or something, where I got scolded by the staff for filming in the store. That's Indigo. I already asked the people, or one of the staff at McNally's, if I could film inside, and he said, as long as you're not making a noise, we don't care what you do. Have at it. So, very friendly at McNally's, and I love their store. My big story this week, and before I get to the books, and this is a great segue, is I went to the absolutely fantastic used bookstore, and I have not vlogged there. It wasn't part of the vlog tour the day after my wedding because it's not open on Sundays. It has been my favorite used bookstore since I was a kid. It's still going strong from when I was 12. My parents used to drop me off there, and I've been buying books there since I was 12 years old. And it's gone through many iterations. It used to be in the Westgate shopping mall on the west side, and that didn't stay there. I mean, after about 15 or 20 or I don't know how many years it moved. The second owner decided she wanted a career change, and she was desperate to keep it going, but nobody could afford to buy it. So she gave it to one of her right-hand men at the shop, one of her employees, for free. And that was about 7 or 8 or 10 years ago. And then it moved again. And it's maybe from my new apartment, it would be a good 20, 25, 30-minute walk, but a very quick bus trip, obviously. And I went there on the bus Tuesday of this week, and it was the day that it rained. My parents are absolutely delighted at how much it rained. They were driving home to the... I stand corrected, it was Monday. Mom and Dad went out to the farm Monday. They drove home in the rain to the farm, and they got a whole bunch of rain at the farm, which they hadn't had much rain all year, so they are absolutely delighted by the big rainstorm we had on Monday. So as you can see, I am sitting on the patio here, and there is a public walkway, and I'm getting lots of looks as people go by. So it's only been since I started on BookTube that I found out that Westgate survived and had a new location, and I have visited there pretty much every time I've been home in the last few years, but you know, not often enough. Once a year, maybe twice a year, not to make an impression or to get to know any of the staff, or you know, none of that has ever occurred to me, or certainly hasn't happened. But it's just they have an amazing collection of British literature and American literature. Their prices are I would say high for a used bookstore, but when you consider that most of it is out of print and you would pay that much online, or you'd pay that much whatever, it's fine. But they have just a massive collection of Indigenous literature, Indigenous nonfiction, history, everything, and lots of Danielle Steele. I mean, they have every freaking thing. And I don't want to exaggerate it. It's not, for the city this size, it's huge. It has a vast collection. I love it. And it has a lot of sentimental value. I remember wondering, as a little tyke, why did they separate the men's fiction, the British fiction, by gender? So they have a large section of British women's fiction and a large, sadly larger, because that's just the truth, section of British men's fiction, and the same for American, and the same for Canadian. And I don't understand why they divide by gender, but I've been asking myself that question since I was 12 years old. But who cares, that it's all there. So let's move on with the story, Sean. So Monday I get there on the bus, and it's just starting to rain. Nobody in Saskatchewan, I think I've seen 2 or 3 people, and they did look like foreigners. Foreigners sounds really terrible in a Saskatchewan context. They didn't look like they were from around here that were carrying umbrellas. Nobody in Saskatchewan has an umbrella. So I certainly didn't have an umbrella. And it was just starting to rain, and I just made it to the bookstore in time, and then the deluge happened. And I found a couple books. Stay tuned for a massive book haul coming your way soon. And it was, you know, just the rain was not letting up. And I was pretty sure he was the owner. I found out later that yes, this was the owner I was speaking to. It was a man maybe around my age, maybe a little bit older, I'm not sure. I'm terrible with ages. That I had never remembered him as being particularly chatty or friendly, but he had never, I guess, had any reason to. I'd been listening as I'd been browsing, and he'd been very friendly with everybody coming in and going out. So he was very friendly with me, and he said, I said, do you mind if I wait here for the rain to go down? And he said, oh, absolutely, no problem. And there was a little table with 2 chairs in the middle of the store, and he said, please, stay as long as you like. Would you like a glass of water or something? And I said, oh, I've got water. So I sat down there. I think I was in that store for 2 more hours, because the rain just would not stop. And finally, after about an hour, I said, you know what, I'm just going to have to get wet, because I want to go have lunch, I want to do this, I want to do that. And he said, well, if you'll wait just a few more minutes until the the other guy gets back from his lunch break, I will drive you. Where are you going? Really? Are you serious? Oh my goodness, are you sure? And yeah, he drove me up 8th Street. No, it would have been a 20-minute trip, maybe, round trip for him, to drop me off at the cafe that I went to for lunch, which is the closest cafe to my new apartment, which is where I was going next. And it was still raining all the way in, and so we had a really good chat. And I'm not going to say much about what we talked about. I actually have a feeling that, you know, he might be somebody. We talked a lot about books and about book selling and this and that. I didn't tell him about my channel, but pretty much told him everything else, and just had a really, it was a conversation that just kind of resonated. It was just one of those conversations that felt like, I don't know, but like, hello, I'm in Saskatchewan, people are really friendly. I couldn't believe it. So the chances of that happening in Tokyo, Tokyo people, there's lots of things I love about Japanese people, but somebody who doesn't know me by name, I didn't even ask his name, he didn't ask my name, but we had this really good chat. So that happened. That's just one of my favorite bookstore stories ever. All right, without further ado, here are the books. I've had an interesting reading week, and it's the first week where I felt like I both had the focus and the time and energy to read, not back up to my customary levels, but going in the right direction. Actually, before I give you my stats, I didn't bring these books up from the basement. I'm not going to take the trouble to go back and bring them now. I'll just put up the gifts. But just a reminder, and you know, I know none of you watch, probably very few of you watch every video I put out. I don't. But just 2 potential read-alongs, or you know, things I'm doing coming up in July. I'm not sure when the videos will get posted, but these Zoom events are happening in July, and I will get them up hopefully by the end of the month. One is the chat with Dorian and James about the Marian Engel novel, the Honeyman Festival. Here's the GIF. Short novella. We read and discussed Bear together last summer, and we're going to make it an annual thing until we get through all of her oeuvre. And this one is the Honeyman Festival. It's one of the few that, aside from Bear, that's still in print, that's easy to get. So I will be recording that chat with James and Dorian in I think July 6th. So hopefully by the end of July, the edited version will go on my channel. So if anybody's interested in reading it in preparation for that video, please be my guest. And similarly, the South African novel Scatterlings, and I'm going to do my best without benefit of re-listening to the video to pronounce the author's name. I believe it's Rešoketšwe Manenzhe. Probably only available outside South Africa. Well, I found a copy, a paper copy, a softcover copy of it about a year ago. I wasn't looking for it. I just kind of stumbled upon it and bought it. So I think there are copies out there, but if you're willing to read an ebook, I think it's fairly widely available. Scatterlings, and Bob and I will, we are this close to nailing down an actual Zoom chat with the author. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up in case it doesn't work out, but I think it's going to happen. But certainly Bob and I will be having a Zoom chat in early July as well. So I'll have 2 fairly lengthy videos to edit. I'm not sure how long that will take, but those are happening in July if anybody'd like to read along for the Black South African Writer series that Bob and I are doing. Now on to my reading week. Yes, it's as I remembered. I have finished 1, I have bailed on 1, and I have started 2. So let's get the negative out of the way first. I bailed at long last on this Asian novel, Run Me to Earth by Paul Yoon. He is a Korean-American novelist, and this is a story about set in Laos, about young Laotians caught up in the war, the bombardment by America, and then tracing them through their increasingly politicized adult lives, where some of them were in prison for a long time and so on. And the story itself was very interesting, but I didn't like the way it was written, and because it just kept me very distant from the characters, and their characters, the characters just didn't ever take shape in a way that I could engage with. So while the plot was very interesting and it struck me as being a very important story to tell, I didn't like the way it was told. I read half of it and I bailed. So that happened. And the one that I finished was Sedating Elaine by Well, I sure screwed up the author's name. It's not Elaine Winter, it's Dawn Winter. And by the end, I didn't really care for it. I gave it 3 stars, which I know for some of you people, that's an okay book, but for me, it's a not okay book that had enough going for it that I couldn't give it less than 3 stars. But three stars is a major disappointment for me. 4 stars is a mild disappointment for me. I'm only really here for the 5-star reads, people. I have said that before on my channel, but not for a while. So I'm sure some of you are spitting out your tea or gagging on your tea as you hear me say such an audacious thing, but it's true. So a 3-star is a pretty big disappointment for me. But the writing was wonderful. I am planning to follow Dawn Winter's career because she has an amazing amount of talent. I didn't care for this novel. I thought it just didn't come together. I was impressed enough by the writing that I probably won't bother with her next novel, but maybe the one after that to see how she's doing. Like I say, it just didn't cohere. The premise was fascinating. It's about this lesbian, and she's not a drug addict. I think she's a casual drug user, but she's amassed this massive amount of debt to her drug dealer, and he has been friendly, and in fact they've been basically friends for years, but he's finally threatening violence if she doesn't pay this huge bill. I think it's £2,000. It's a British novel. And she's got a new girlfriend that she doesn't really care for, that she is a very draining person to be around. She herself, the protagonist, is not over an ex. And this is kind of a rebound relationship, but Elaine, her girlfriend, is a piece of work. But she comes from a rich family. And so our protagonist, what is her name? Frances. Our protagonist is Frances. She asks Elaine, despite her being such an exhausting person to be around, she asked her to move in, and she's thinking that will help her save enough that she would eventually have the money for her drug dealer. But the drug dealer is threatening to sick his enforcer, who is a woman, but she's capable of just maniacal violence against people who don't pay their debts on Frances. But Frances thinks if she can buy some time, that if her girlfriend moves in, she'll have enough money later. But then she gets herself all fucked up even further by lying to Elaine and telling her that her half of the rent is the £2,000, which is the amount of the debt. And Elaine says, "Oh my God, I love you so much. I want to live with you. Okay, I'm moving in right today." And then money will come in a few days. So for the rent. So Frances is overwhelmed. She's relieved, but she just can't stand to be spending so much time with Elaine. So she actually manages to get more drugs from her dealer, sedatives, to sedate Elaine so that she doesn't have to put up with her rambunctious, obnoxious, overwhelming presence while they are cohabiting. And then she's planning to break up with her and kick her out. You know, so it's that kind of a premise. But then what didn't work for me was that there was all this backstory, which was more traditional, lots of flashbacks to the relationship with the ex, and to her childhood, and to something that tragic that happened in her childhood, and it just didn't get those two things to fit together for me. The writing was gorgeous. There was a lot of humor in it. I did end up caring just a little bit for the characters, but not enough to really end up liking the novel. I think for a different kind of reader, it might work. Well, obviously for what is that book blogger's name? Amanda. Her book blog is Bookish Chat. I'll put a link to her review because she really, really liked it. So do check out her review. And, you know, a large number of people watching this video do not like the same kind of books that I do. I think some of you watch to find out which books I don't like, because those might be books for you. So do check this one out further. It didn't work for me. On to much, much, much happier territory. I started this was on my Pride TBR, and this is a novel that I think is pretty hard to find in North America. I bought it online before I came back. It's so far only published in Britain, but you know, the author is American. Other People Manage by Ellen Hawley, and the title kind of grabbed me, but especially that cover, and I don't know why that cover appeals to me so much, but I just think it's gorgeous. And it is a story about a lesbian couple that meet in the 1970s, and one half of this couple, Peg, has died. They're somewhat elderly. I don't know how elderly. I guess if they were young women in the 70s, would be older than me, so they're probably in their 60s or 70s, and it's the story of Marge remembering their relationship and also, you know, cleaning out Peg's closet and all the stuff that you do when your partner dies. It starts from that grief-stricken place, and then we go back to how the relationship started. I freaking love the writing. So Ellen Hawley, she's an American writer, and she's published quite a few novels, 4 or 5. I had never heard of her. Have you? And all of those novels were published in the States. I believe she is from Minnesota originally, but don't quote me on that. There's a website, or I read something, I think she has a website. If she does, I'll put the link in the show notes. But she's been living in Cornwall, in the UK, for the last 15 years, and this is her first novel to be published in the UK. I assume it's going to be published in the States eventually. It sure as hell better be. I am just... It's such a Sean book so far, and I hesitate to get too excited. I know that I've burned, if that's not too strong a word, I've burned some of my subscribers. You know, I've read 40 pages by enthusing like this in the opening of a book and then not ending up liking it by the time I'm finished. That kind of happened with Sedating Elaine, although I wasn't that enthusiastic at the beginning, but my reaction was positive at the beginning. This one, over the top, I just think it could be one of my books of the year if it continues to impress me as much as the first 40 pages have. Just perfect sentences that are wise, and I don't need my sentences to be wise. I like it when they're perfect, but it's so eminently quotable. I could probably put every single paragraph or an excerpt from every single paragraph up as a book quote. It's just that good. And so when they met, the protagonist, her name is Marge, she was a bus driver, and Peg was a psychotherapist. So it was they were an odd couple from the beginning. And I love the way she writes about sex. I love the way she writes about emotions without the slightest bit of anything cloying or overly sentimental. It's absolutely, completely devoid of any sentimentality, but it's just representing both the end of a relationship and the grief, and then when we go back, the newness of that relationship and the spaces, the emotional spaces between people. It's just perfect. I can't think of another writer that has done better with those kind of moments between people that matter so much to me as a reader. So I am deeply, deeply impressed. It's a short little novel. I will probably finish it fairly soon, and I hope that I'm as enthusiastic about it by the end as I am this far in. And also on my Pride TBR, I have started, just barely started, I'm 10% of the way in to the novel Little Fish by the Canadian trans writer, Casey Plett. According to Goodreads, Casey Plett's pronouns are she and her. So this novel is also starting out really good. I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't say I'm as excited about it as I am about Other People Manage, but it's very much impressed me, the first couple chapters. So the protagonist is a trans woman, and her grandmother dies, and she goes back to I think a small Manitoba town. Casey Plett is from Manitoba. Is that where she lives now? Maybe, but I think that's where she hails from. So the protagonist goes back to the small town for her grandmother's funeral, and then she receives a strange phone call while she's at her grandmother's house just after the funeral or whatever, from a lady that she doesn't know, that tells her that her grandfather, her dead grandfather, he had died many years earlier, I think when the protagonist was 9 years old, that he was a trans man. And that's how the story opens. The protagonist is sassy. She reminds me in some ways of the protagonist of Detransition Baby. And she is now starting to be very curious about her grandmother, who she does remember quite well, fondly, from the perspective of a 9-year-old, that he may have had a much more interesting life than ever she imagined. And I don't know where the story's going from there, but the writing is really good. There's something where other writers would give you 3 paragraphs about something, she gives you 2 or 3 really communicative sentences chock full of meaning and incident and so on. There's something no nonsense about the writing that's really working for me. Very different from Ellen Hawley's writing. It's a nice pairing, I guess, in a way. So that's what's been happening in my reading week, and I finished one, bailed on one, started two. So I'm up to 14 books, and I have gone back and forth about what I'm going to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start one more in the coming week. There's a possibility I will finish other stuff before Friday, so I might start more than one, but I'm not going to go above the 15. And I thought I might get started on Elizabeth von Arnim, is that her name? My BookTube spin book, This Enchanted April. Yes, Elizabeth von Arnim, The Enchanted April. And I may start that, but only if I finish one other book. But for the available slot to bring me up to 15, I'm going to immediately start, probably as soon as today, one more from my Pride TBR, and I've gone back and forth about which one. But what clinched it for me was that I finally went and got my Saskatoon Public Library card. The closest branch is a 15-minute walk from Mom and Dad's, and it's also about a 15-minute walk from my new apartment, so that will be my library. So now I'm on Libby, and what's the other one? There's another e-book, audiobook app that you have to have a library card to use. What's the other one? Anyway, those two. And so they had an audiobook for this that I really, really liked, and I have the ebook, and that is one that I first found out about from Sarah Hope on one of the Bite-Sized Book Chats episodes. I'll put a link to that chat in the show notes. Radiant Fugitives by Nawaaz Ahmed. This is the one with the really queer family. I think it opens with the lesbian character about to give birth and so on. It's set, I think, in Obama-era San Francisco, and there's just a whole bunch of queer stuff going on in this Muslim Indian American family, 3 generations. Sounds just fascinating, and the audiobook is really good, so I'm going to do it as an audio text combo. I haven't explained recently what I mean by an audio text combo. I didn't invent the concept. I would like to think that I did, but no, I didn't. Lots of other smart readers have done this before I came along and started evangelizing about it, but it's when you have the audiobook in your ear and the book, print or ebook, open in your lap, and you do the two in tandem. It's not like listening to one chapter while you're walking to the bus and then reading another chapter on the bus. No, you're always in tandem. And to me, it just is the deepest way to experience a literary text. So that's what I mean when I say audio text combo, and I shall be doing an audio text combo with Radiant Fugitives. Love the title, love the cover, I hope I love the book. Hey guys, just a quick addendum. I have finished editing the video, but minutes after I recorded my Friday reads this morning, the news about Roe v. Wade broke. Wasn't a big surprise, but still just incredibly enraging, so I wanted to mention that. Been thinking about it, feeling a lot of anger, don't have anything eloquent to say about it, but if you have people in your life who can get pregnant, or have ever been pregnant or wanted to be pregnant, this is very much an issue that should matter to you. It matters very much to me. I'm fucking furious about it. Don't have, as usual, have nothing eloquent to say about it. I also have to add a little bit about the audio text combo, because I started Radiant Fugitives as an audio text combo, and within about 3 minutes, I grew to detest the audio narration of the audiobook. I won't embarrass the poor guy by saying his name, but, you know, a 20-second preview is not enough for me to know whether I'm going to connect. In terms of explaining what I mean when I say that doing a literary text as an audio text combo is the deepest way to experience it, that is true. But the audio narration has to add something to the process. And if it doesn't add anything, then it's not going to work. And I very quickly realized before I finished chapter 1 that I was enjoying, well, I couldn't actually tell if I was enjoying the writing because the audio narration was starting to grate on me almost from the get-go. I don't know why my cursory preview yesterday didn't show me that that's what would happen, but that is what happened. So I have already returned the audiobook to Libby or to the library. Just click of a button, it's gone, and finished reading the chapter myself and quite liked the writing. So it doesn't work in every case is my point, and let's get back to the conclusion of this video. Well, that's my Friday reads. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to some feedback on my new blouse. I think I have one more long-sleeved left to debut next week, and 2 short sleeves, and by that time it'll be probably warm enough. I'll need it. Certainly needed the long sleeve today. It's starting to warm up a bit, but I think I need to go shopping for some more short sleeve. So there's going to be an infinite number of blouses to debut. That's my hope and wish. Thanks for watching.